Hello everyone. Today I will take up a new poem that's name is Crossing the Bar. And this is a very beautiful religious poem, and this poem is written by Alfred Lord Tennyson. Students, first of all we will do the introduction of the poet Alfred Lord Tennyson. Alfred Lord Tennyson is considered the most representative voice of the Victorian England, articulating in verse the different intellectual currents prevalent at that time. Alfred Tennyson was born in 1809 in the family of clergymen, and he was the fourth of the 12 children. And he was the son of the Reverend Honorable, that means George Tennyson. Tennyson was partly educated at the Louth Grammar School at Trinity College, Cambridge. He won gold medal for writing poems, and he got first prize for his poems at an early age in 1842. He published poem by two brothers, and this is the name of the poem, Poems by Two Brothers, and which was followed by his first independent volume of poems. And now we will talk about his all the major important poems and famous poem. His well-known poems are Maud, Idylls of the King, Ballads, The Lotus Eaters, Ulysses, and The Change of Light Brigade, etc. The untimely death of his most intimate and the first friend, Hallam, and became the subject matter of his most philosophical poem, In Memoriam, in 1850, which both immortalized his friends and reflected the growth of Tennyson's mind and art. And Dickens is the name of the poet. Dickens praised the poem for its truth and beauty, and he was appointed Poet Laureate of England after Wordsworth's death in 1850. The unprecedented honor of peerage was conferred on him in 1883, and which he loved to enjoy till he died. And a major factor of the Victorian age was the weakening or even loss of faith and the progress of science in this age, and that appeared to be the disturb and weaken people's faith in God, church, and religion. It means in the Victorian age, people have lost their faith in God, church, and religion. But Tennyson and Browning continued to believe that God might be there, and this idea is elaborately expressed in many of his poems, including in Memoriam, and it is also suggested in Crossing the Bar, one of the most famous of English lyrics, where the poet says, I hope to see my pilot and face to face when I have crossed the bar. Now, summary in brief. Crossing the Bar is a brief, simple, and one of the most famous poems. It's intensely moving poems from nearing to the end of his life. Tennyson wrote this poem as an epitaph of his life, and after he had crossed the 80th year of his life, and this poem containing just 4 quatrains. And do you know, students, quatrains means a passage of 4 lines. And if you students see in your book, and then you find that here are 4 passages, it means in this poem, Crossing the Bar, it consists of the 4 passages, 4 stanza, and every stanza consists of 4 lines. And so we can call it a 4 quatrains. In this poem, poet describes the 2 main ideas. In the first view of this poem, we see that this poem is a description of sea voyage. But in the second view, we find that this is a philosophical and deep in meaning religious poem. But in reality, the poet describes the journey of second home. And do you know, second home, that means the earth. And the first home, that means the heaven. Heaven is our first home, and earth is our second home. And so, in this poem, the poet describes the journey of second home to first home. And in this journey, the poet does not express of any feeling, agony, and regret at the approach of death. Rather, he welcomes the death, and he is happy, for it is only after death that he hopes to meet God face to face at the end of his journey. Sunset and evening star, and one clear call for me, and may there by no morning of the bar when I put out to sea. And in these lines, as we know students, the Tennyson wrote this poem at the age of 80. And he is describing here the last days of his life, and he is ready to go to his first home. And one clear call for me, and this line is the second line, one clear call for me, that means the poet hears clearly the call of death. He expects that one should not weeping, crying, and lament over his death, because this is the spiritual journey. And in this journey, the poet is going to his actual home. And so, the poet says that no needs to crying, and no needs to weeping, and no needs to lament over of his death. And he is going to his actual home. And this earth is not our permanent home. But after death, we meet our Father face to face. And so he wants a simple and peaceful death. Now, second stanza. But such a tide as moving seems asleep, too full for sound and foam, when that which drew from out the boundless deep turns again home. And explanation of this stanza. This stanza reflects the poet's wish for a full tide, and means at the time of death there should be a tide. And students, as we know that the poet describing his death to a journey, and he is comparing God to the pilot, ship to the spiritual journey and soul, and waves to the family members. So, in this stanza, he highlighted that in the sea just as a tide, and so that there is no sound of waves, because it is a scientific reason, and we know that when the tide in the sea, there is no sound in a waves. So that because at the time of tide, the sea and ocean are very quiet and calm. Similarly, there should be no weeping or cry of his death. And the poet wishes a smooth journey from his temporary home and to move the actual home. And in other words, he wants to die peacefully and cheerfully. Now, come to the stanza third. TV light and evening bell, and after that the dark, and may there be no sadness of farewell when I embark. And in this stanza, twilight, that means the soft light, and this soft light comes at the time of the rising sun, at the times of the setting of the sun. And embark, that means to sail, but here in this passage and according to this poem, embark, that means die. In this stanza, the poet, referring to the close of the poet's life in the opening lines of this poem, are drawn here again through TV light or evening bell. And this repetition lays stress on the poet's awareness of the inevitability of the death. And he would not like his friend to bid him mournful and farewell when his soul sail for its original home. In short, in every stanza, in every quatrain, the poet suggests only a one point, and the one point is that he is going to his actual home, and he wants that nobody crying and weeping and presents his sorrow on his death, and he wants a very happy and cheerful death. And now come to the stanza 4. For thou, and from out are born of time and place, and the flood may bear me far. I hope to see my pilot face to face when I have crossed the bar. Now, students, in this passage, note down some words. Word meaning. Born, that means boundary. This word is given in this fourth stanza, first line. Born, that means boundary. Pilot, that pilot. Here is referred the meaning of pilot to God, and crossed, that means cross. And so here is also the repetition in this poem. In this stanza, and the poet is saying the same things in this stanza. And again, in this stanza, the poet indicates the essence of the poet's religious creed and his profound faith in the God, and he justifies his reason for not being afraid of death, and he welcomes death, for it is only after death the human soul sails across the earthly life into the ocean of eternity, and where it actually meets God and the invisible divine spirit which guides the human soul. And the poet believes that his soul, like the ship, in the hands of an expert pilot, and as we know that pilot here refers to God. And in short, I want to say that Tennyson faith in God and in the morality of the human soul. And hope so, students, you understood this poem clearly, and do practice the same.